What's going on, guys? So I am finally getting a chance to make this Q&A video for you. I meant to do it like a year ago, but I've just been crazy busy, and in fact, I'm more busy today than I was even, say, 3 months ago or 6 months ago. But I need to get this done because this was supposed to be for 9,000 subs, and we recently passed 10K, and we're just keeping on rolling. So I have all your questions here. I'm going to get to them in a second, but I figured I'd give you a really quick update. First of all, I hope all of you are doing well amidst this crazy worldwide pandemic. I think there's a lot of positive signs that things aren't nearly as bad as some people are making them out to be. I just saw a study done recently in the UK where they tested like 200 people and they found that a third of them already had the antibodies against COVID. So honestly, I think a lot of people have already gotten it. And I think there's a lot of political things going on right now, as well as financial things. It's kind of interesting. I know our governor, I believe Wolf, has like his own company, and he gave his own company a waiver to continue producing like cabinets or whatever, and nobody else can. So there's a lot of political stuff going on, especially with it being an election year. So don't worry, everything's going to be fine. It's not the end of the world, even though some people want you to believe that. So I hope you're all doing well. I hope you didn't lose your job or you're still making money. I hope you got a stimulus check. I know I got mine the other week. I wish I could spend it on car stuff, but obviously I have to do adult things with that check. Other than that, we have an ice cream shop, which I've mentioned in previous videos. We are actually in the process of moving. Haven't moved yet, and thankfully our lease has not started, so we don't have to pay on a space that we can't be in. Right now, the township offices are closed, so we can't even get the permits to do the demolition of that space and rebuild that space. So hopefully once all this passes over, we'll be able to get rolling with that, and we'll be able to have ice cream. Other than that, my church that I go to is a fairly small church. It's a Berean Fellowship Church out in Scott Township, PA, if you're familiar with the area. Pretty small church, not a mega church by any means. So they do not really have much of a tech team. They actually just put together a digital media team, which I am part of, and I'm using my YouTube knowledge and skills to help them put their sermons together, their messages and the worship, and put that in a video so that they could upload that to YouTube and Facebook. If you're interested, I'll just drop that in the comments down below. Not trying to force that on anybody, just want you to know that's an option. And with that, it made me realize that a lot of churches are getting left behind, especially smaller churches. Like the bigger churches, they have tech teams, they got fat budgets, they don't really have a problem. They have, $1,000 computers dedicated to just live streaming. But I know my church and a lot of other smaller churches have just really been left behind with this sudden transition to having to go digital and do everything online. And a lot of churches are also run by older people, no offense, who don't have the same technology knowledge that you and I have, my generation has. So I'm actually starting another YouTube channel. Has nothing to do with cars, but it's actually going to be geared towards helping smaller churches or individuals start a YouTube channel, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm really gearing that towards churches, but a lot of the same things will apply to individuals as well. And I'm also going to show some basic video editing, how I do it in Final Cut, how I create my thumbnails, all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in starting a YouTube channel, or whether it's for you, for a company, a business, a group, whatever, a team, feel free to check out that as well. I'll drop that in the comments down below. Again, just putting that out there. So that's what I've been doing, making a lot of videos for them. And actually it's easier for me because I don't have to make the videos. We just record it and I edit it and upload it. I add the the verses and the lyrics to the songs for worship and whatnot. But I'm really happy and thankful that I'm able to help them with that. And I know a lot of other churches need that help as well. So that's what that channel is going to be for. That is basically what I have been up to. Obviously, we still have the ice cream business, so I'm working on that. I just created a new logo, putting policies together, all that kind of stuff. So I've been crazy busy. And I guess we'll just get into this because there are a couple other things, but that gets into some of these questions. So these questions are random in no particular order from the past several months. Some are newer than others. So first of all, if you could do it again, would you go with a 2004 STI with an EJ207, which is the engine, if you're not familiar? That's a good question. And in short, no. I'm in the US In the US, we were not offered the EJ207. So this question kind of breaks down into two parts. So first of all, would I go with an 04 STI? Honestly, probably not. The 04 STIs are a weird, oddball year. In fact, if you're shopping for parts online, you'll see that a lot of the parts are, interchangeable between 2005 and 2007. And 04 kind of stands out on its own. There were a lot of just weird things with the 04s. They're not really better than an 06. So 04 isn't a bad year. It's just, in my opinion, the least sought after year. I know there's some guys who really love the 04s because it was the first one. But I would probably go with an 05 STI if I had to, or an 06 or an 07. Personally, I love my 06. I think 06 was the best year. Not just because I own one, but if you look at all the, everything that Subaru did throughout the years, I think they hit their pinnacle in 06. And after that, they kind of started, watering it down again. So I would definitely stick with my 06. 04 isn't a terrible year, but I wouldn't really want one necessarily. And as far as an EJ207, I know there's a lot of guys who obsess about this engine because it's JDM. And I'm not saying it's a bad engine at all, but me personally, I'm not really interested in one because to get one, you'd have to do an engine swap. And if you're talking about an engine swap, I honestly believe there are better engines to go with. IAG makes a lot of really awesome blocks. I don't know. Just me personally, I'm not obsessed with the EJ207. It is a great motor, but since it isn't coupled with the 04 STI in the US, I kind of wouldn't do that. I don't really care for the 04 STI or the EJ207. I would just keep what I have. So I hope that answers that question. Next up, is the STI 9 easy to get used to? The STI 9 being the version 9, which I believe is like 04 through 07. Maybe 05 through 07, whatever, ballpark. Basically the car that I have, especially when it's your first sports car. So yeah, I would say it's really not a hard car to drive at all. I think if it's your first car ever, there's going to be a learning curve to driving any car. If it's your first stick, there's going to be a learning curve. As far as driving a stick, it's really not that bad. I know there are a lot of other cars that are more forgiving. Even like a Legacy. I drove my buddy's Legacy Spec B, and that had a lot more, it just was a lot more forgiving. The clutch wasn't quite as harsh as my STI. I know a lot of Hondas are like that. A lot of other cars are like that. So if you're getting an STI as your first car or sports car, if it's your first stick, getting used to the stick is a little bit different. Just the clutch is, at least in my car, it's kind of stiff and it has a very precise engagement point, which I like, but it's not as forgiving as some other cars. If it's your first car, I don't know, that's kind of rough. And I don't know exactly what he means by sports car, because that's kind of vague. It's really not a bad car to learn on or to get used to. The only thing that I would say is getting used to the power. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, STIs aren't that fast. They're still slow. They're all-wheel drive. But if you've never driven anything even that quick, there's definitely a curve to that. One of my first experiences in my car, I had it for maybe a month or two. This was when I was living down in South Carolina, and I was at a red light, and I had to make a left-hand turn. So the light turns green, and I should also mention, it had been raining, and the tires I had on the car were not good. I think they were the BF Goodrich KDW2s. Do not recommend them. I think they discontinued them. Sorry, they were trash. But mid-corner, so light turns green, I start making this left-hand turn. Mid-corner, the turbo spools, and I was not ready for it. And I actually spun 180 degrees and looked like a complete idiot. Wasn't trying to be aggressive, wasn't trying to drive fast or anything like that, but I just personally wasn't used to the turbo spool. First turbo car I ever had. So, there's things like that you kind of need to get used to, but it's really not a bad car. I think it's very forgiving. The handling's great. The ride is pretty good. So there are definitely worse cars, especially anything like rear-wheel drive, I would say is probably, harder to get used to. I think like a Mustang GT would probably be more tricky to learn to drive than an STI. But yeah, it's really not a hard car to get used to at all. Are you going to join Haggard Garage or Hunt Gang? Hashtag SmurfinWRX. Okay. So first of all, I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody in what I'm about to say, but I'm going to answer this honestly. I'm not really a fan of Haggard Garage. I never watched Haggard Garage. I watched like 2 of their videos, and to me, I don't know if they're still a thing or if they're still making videos or what, but like back in the day, they were just doing really, really stupid stuff, and I found them to be incredibly annoying. In fact, I watched like 1 or 2 videos, and I was just like, man, these kids are dumb. I can't do this. And then the one kid like crashed his car trying to do a burnout. What was his name? Rudnick. I saw that video before it got taken down and before he went to jail and all that. He like tried to do a burnout and like crashed into a tree and almost burned down half of the forest. So I would definitely not join Haggard Garage. I'm not a fan of Haggard Garage. Nothing personal against them. I just, when you're on YouTube, you are a role model, whether you like it or not, for younger viewers. And it doesn't mean you can't have fun or do anything, but the stuff they were doing, I do not agree with. I was not a fan of. Hunt Gang. So, I've known TJ since like 2015. I think I met him. That's actually when I started my channel. It's 2015 at the, right after the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, they had a meet. So if you go back to like my first videos, that's one of my first very cringy videos was, meeting Evan Shanks and TJ Hunt at the waterfront. And I think TJ closed out that video, and David Patterson was there too. So I'm cool with TJ. I don't have a problem with TJ. I haven't followed his channel a whole lot lately. I haven't done much of anything. It's always been business, church stuff, and everything else. I still have a job. I'm still in the Air National Guard, so I have that. So I haven't followed his channel. Nothing personal. But yeah, I'm cool with TJ. I don't really have a problem with him. I don't know of any drama going on, so don't hit me up and be like, oh, don't you know he did XYZ? No, I don't know. I haven't been online. Hashtag SmurfinWRX. I followed Mike's channel way back in the day, like probably right after I got my car, say 2011-ish. Because back in the day, there were not a lot of car channels, much less Subaru car channels. So even though he had like an '08 or whatever hatchback, I still followed him. Don't really got a problem with him. Don't know anything. I know there was some drama going on before. That's kind of how I feel. Sorry, I'm not being more descriptive, but I don't have a problem with anybody, but I'm not like obsessed with anybody or love anybody. Like, okay. Smurfing, Haggard Garage, okay. That's basically where I am, so I hope that answers that question. Okay, so this question's super late. Like I said, this is from like last summer. Are you going to Picklesburg this weekend? No. I actually did not go to Picklesburg last year. I would like to go at some point. I just haven't. I'm usually busy with working or whatever, but I do plan on going at some point. I don't know when. I couldn't tell you, and right now like everything is shut down, so I assume they're having it this year at some point, but who knows. Yeah, I'd like to go at some point, but I did not go last year. Next question. Is it worth financing a car, or should you pay cash when buying a new or used car? This is actually a really good question, and I do like like finance questions, budgeting, and things like that. I'm not an accountant. I am not into numbers, but I like spending my money wisely and getting good deals and stuff like that. So, first of all, it kind of depends. I'll put it that way. It depends. First of all, buying a new or used car. Let's just separate that out. Buying a new car, like I'm talking off the showroom floor, first owner, you're going to pay a lot more. As soon as you drive it off the lot, it's going to depreciate in value by several $1,000s, regardless of what you buy. So if you want to buy new, that's cool. I know my mom bought her WRX new. She didn't care. That was her first car that she like ever bought brand spanking new. So for her, it was worth it. Like she just wanted the new car. If you don't care about having a brand new car and you want to have something that's slightly used or certified pre-owned, that is a more affordable option usually. So I would recommend that. As far as financing goes, there are a couple different types of financing. So I think of leasing, and you could also, take out a loan and make payments. The difference is when you lease a car, that company still owns your car. So you're making payments on it. They're basically letting you borrow it and drive it around. But you're not paying off the car. You don't own the car. At the end of that 2-year lease or however long your lease is, you make that last payment. A lot of times they'll let you like renew or get a new car or whatever, but you don't own that car. When you finance a car, when you have a loan, you actually get the title at the end of that time whenever you pay off that car. Personally, I'm not a fan of leasing cars. I know some people do it. I'm not saying it's not right to do it. It really depends on your situation and your finances and what the car's used for and a whole lot of other things that I'm really not going to get into because you could talk a whole hour about financing a car. So I personally would say try to avoid leasing if possible. It's kind of like renting an apartment. A lot of times there's a phase of in your life where you have to do that. I know when I was in South Carolina, I had an apartment for like 2.5 years. In those 2.5 years, I spent $25,000 on that rent, and I didn't get that back. I didn't, put that towards a house. I didn't get anything back from that. It's just, hey, here's this money. Okay, I'm going to move now. Now I need to spend more money, right? It's the same thing with leasing a car. So I wouldn't recommend it, but it may be an option for you. If you have a loan is a good option because especially if you're buying a car, if it's your first car, you're probably not going to have just cash on hand. It's possible to buy an older car, and maybe you've been saving, maybe you have a good job or whatever. It's possible to save up that money and pay cash or mostly cash. I get that, or maybe someone else will help you pay for it. That's cool. If that's an option, great. But for most people, I think you're going to have to take out a loan or at least part of a loan for a car. That's how I afforded my first car, which was a 2002 Mitsubishi Eclipse. Also my STI. When I went to buy my STI, I did not have, an extra $20,000 just in bands to pay. Hey, here's $20,000. I had to get a loan. And this actually brings me to my next point. When I went to get that loan, I had no credit history. I didn't have bad credit. I just really didn't have any credit. And it was the hardest thing in the world to try and get a loan with anybody because when they see zero credit history, they just don't trust you. They don't look at it and say, oh, okay, you're 19, you're 20, this is your first loan, okay. They just are like, yeah, we're not going to loan you that much. Oh, we'll loan you $500. Well, $500 isn't going to buy a car, right? So it was a pain in the butt to try and get financing for my STI. I should clarify, my Eclipse was actually financed through my mom. It was in her name, and then I paid her for that. But I actually had to get my grandmother to co-sign for me when I first bought my STI. Even though I was in the military, had a full-time job, had a decent paycheck, they wouldn't give me a loan. And that was through Navy Federal, which was actually more forgiving than some other companies out there. But yeah, long story short, because like I said, you could talk about this all day. Long story short, if you want to get a new car or a used car, paying cash is a great option because that means you have zero debt. I would also recommend that if you are trying to build up your credit, that you go for the loan and then pay on that loan. Even if you are paying a little bit of interest, a lot of times it is worth it to build that credit so that you have that reputation. Now I've had my car for 9 years, had a heck of a time trying to get the loan in the first place, but now my credit is really good and I have that credit score, so I could just get credit cards left and right. I could get a loan if I need to. And that's not saying that I just spend money. Oh, I have a card here, let me charge everything. No, you pay that off, you keep it at zero. But my whole credit line overall is pretty good, so that helps. So that's a really long answer, but it's kind of an in-depth question. So lease a car if you have to. I'm not saying it's not an option, but just know that when you're at the end of that lease, you're not getting your money back. If you could pay cash, that would be awesome because you have zero debt, you pay zero interest, but that doesn't help you build, your credit history. If you need to finance a car, that is probably most reasonable for most people. I think especially right now, the percentage rates are really low because of what's going on. So if you could get a super low percentage rate, that would be great as well. I hope that answered that question for anybody without boring everybody. So next question. This is actually in regards to a video I did like last summer. I was replacing the OEM fender flares or overarch fenders, whatever, on the rear of my car before I wrapped my car. So why not put on some Carlton / ABW fenders or flares instead? Basically because there's several reasons. Number one, I'm not a big fan of fender flares. They look great on some cars, but right now I think they've been done to death. Everybody and their grandfather has been wide bodying their car and putting on fender flares. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't do that, but right now when everybody else is doing it, I'm kind of like, I'll wait. Number two is when I do add fender flares, I want to go with a full wide body kit. There's a really awesome looking kit that's like a WRC replica of that wide body. I'd probably go with that. I'm not against just doing the fender flares, but like literally everybody just does the fender flares and it's kind of done to death. Like I said, everybody's doing it and it's kind of old. And the third reason is I don't want to wide body my daily driver right now. I like being able to get around, and I have enough trouble getting around as is, especially in Pittsburgh, without my car being a wide body. But when you widen your car, you got to think about everything. Getting down narrow streets is a little bit tighter. Getting through construction zones, obviously it's wide enough for trucks, so it's not a big deal. Parking spaces are closer. A whole bunch of other things. A lot of times you're going to have to widen your wheels or get wheel spacers, which is another thing. It turns into a big rabbit hole. And so then you have to widen your wheels, which affects your turning radius and a whole bunch of other things. So usually when you widen a car, it becomes less drivable or less easy to drive. It's not as, it's not something that you really want to do to a daily. At least me personally, I'm like, no. When I get another car as my daily, would I wide body my STI? Yeah, if it's in the budget, I'm not against it. That would be cool. So maybe someday I will wide body my car. If I do, I'm going with a full body kit, not really just the fender flares. At least that's my plan. Next question. What's the best performance car out there, in my opinion, whether it be new or used, around $35K? That's kind of a tough question. At least he said, what's the best performance car? Because I know a lot of times people ask, what's the best car? Well, that depends. Do you want storage space? Maybe you want a hatchback. Do you have kids? Do you need to haul stuff? Do you want to go fast? So at least best performance car. Okay, that gives me a ballpark. I'm thinking something that's actually somewhat fast, right? Or quick, sporty. And yeah, so my price tag is around $35K. So I'm going to ballpark this, say 30 to 35K-ish, but there's such a wide range of cars available in that price range. You're going to have some in the high 20s, some in the low 30s, but let's see. I would say it really depends on what you want and where you live. So if you live in a northern area like I do, I live in Pittsburgh, we have winter. Is this going to be your only car? If it is, maybe you want all-wheel drive. So if you don't, first of all, then I would say you can go with rear-wheel drive without a problem. Rear-wheel drive is still fine in the snow if you get good snow tires, but obviously it's not as good as all-wheel drive is. So if snow doesn't matter, I'd say a Mustang GT is a great place to start. I know they're not the most refined car, but Ford has really stepped their game up when it comes to the Mustang, especially in the last few years. So whether you get the, the one with the Coyote in it, or you get like the Mustang GT, or I don't even know how much like the Bullet is. There are so many Mustang variants out there right now, and they're all, I think, at or around or under 35K. I think the GT is around like 26, 27K. I'd say that's a really great car. Plenty of performance, not really slow, fast, fun, looks great. It's easy to modify. You can, add on like a lip spoiler, rear wing, stuff like that. So that's a really good buy. Another option is a WRX, which again, I don't know if that's as affordable or cost effective as the Mustang is, but it does give you all-wheel drive, which is really cool. And I'm going to throw the STI in that as well. I know there are probably a bunch of other cars that fall into that category. I'm not as big of a fan of the Focus RS or the ST, me personally. I don't know. I think the Civic Si is in the low 20s or so, somewhere in that. So there's a lot of great cars out there. Me personally, for under 25, or I'm sorry, under 30K, I'd probably go with a Mustang GT. That's your best option. STI is good. WRX is good. It's kind of hard to go wrong. There are so many cars out there right now that are just great. It's really hard to pick a bad one. And again, if you're going new or used cars are obviously significantly cheaper. You could buy a used Evo or an STI or a WRX, but beware, at this point, you're going to have to fix it up. You're going to have to replace stuff. You know, there was a time where a lot of people wanted to avoid used ones because, you know, the engine wasn't going to be good or they were going to be beat on. At this point, they're all beat on. They're all trashed. You're basically going to have to replace something, whether it's the engine or something. So yeah, I hope that answers that. Skilly asks, do you like the 15 plus body style? I do. I think that the 15 plus looks great. We'll see how it ages. They are very modern, which right now it's trendy to be angular and a little bit wider, beefy, right? I think it will age well, but sometimes it doesn't. If you look at the older, I don't know, like the Ford Lightning, the F-150 Lightnings, back in the day, they looked super cool. Everybody was gung-ho about them. Today, they look very dated, like they are stuck in the 90s. The same is true, in my opinion, not trying to offend anybody, but the same is true for the Bug Eye and the Blob Eye STIs or WRXs. They are kind of dated. I think they still look really great, but you could kind of pinpoint when they were made. One thing that I'm very thankful about is that I have the HawkeyeSTiGuy 0607. I think the angular headlights look a lot better. They have aged better. It doesn't look like it's from the 90s or early 2000s. It still looks pretty modern. Obviously, you could tell it's older. It's not super modern because it's not super angular and rigid and square. But yeah, I do like the 15 plus. I do think they are going to age well, but we'll see how they look in about 10 to 15 years or so. What's your thoughts on the Evo? Have you driven one, and can you do a review driving one if there is anyone in the area that has one? Okay, so first of all, I do know a couple people who have them. I am in touch with the guys at 6-Star. I know they have Evos pop in and out every once in a while. I do have a neighbor who has an Evo 10. Not that I talk to him regularly, but they are around. They're available. I don't really care to do a review. Car reviews in general, just not an Evo. It's not like I wouldn't review an Evo. Me personally, I feel like car reviews for the most part have been done to death. I know David Patterson did a ton of car reviews, and that's his thing. I think he's great at it. Matt Moran does a lot of car reviews. He does newer cars lately. He gets a lot of press cars. Those are just two channels. You know, there are plenty of channels. I know TJ Hunt did a lot of car reviews back in the day. I feel like car reviews kind of have been done to death. And for me personally, I really don't have the time or the interest in going through the hassle of trying to find somebody with a particular car, lining up our schedules, filming it, and then editing all that. Just for me to drive around in an Evo and be like, oh, wow, this is great. I feel like everybody's done that. And like I said, there are other channels that have done a better job than I could. I don't hate Evos. I think they're great. It's kind of like the other side of the coin as far as the STI goes. I think they're both great cars. Evos have problems. STI have problems. So yeah, I think they're great cars. I don't have a problem with it. I do like the older Evos, like the Evo 7, 8, and 9, as opposed to the Evo 10. Not that I dislike the 10. It's just a lot bigger, and it's not really a true rally car like the Evo was originally made to be. And that same sentiment kind of carries over to Subaru. I do like the newer Subarus. I don't have a problem with them. I'm talking about the 15 plus. But I do like the older, more nimble Subarus. I know my car is a little bit heavier than like the old GCs were. But yeah, like early 2000s, mid 2000s, Mitsubishi and Subaru kind of had the whole rally car thing going on, and I feel like they've kind of gotten away from that. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just different. So I do like Evos. The Evo 10 I don't have a problem with. I just think it's kind of big and kind of like a boat. But yeah, I've never driven an Evo. I have never driven an Evo. I would like to. I was actually at a car dealer. This was back in South Carolina. I went to a Mitsubishi dealer. just to see what was on the lot. They had, I believe it was an Evo 10 MR, which I was interested in. Which is funny, before I joined the military, I was super gung-ho about the Evo 10 MR. Wanted one in wicked white with black and carbon fiber accents. Never happened. Might happen someday. I just thought the Stormtrooper Evos were like the sickest thing ever. So anyway, I stopped at this dealership, saw one on the lot, and I was interested. I wasn't going to sell my car, wasn't going to trade it, but I just kind of wanted to check it out. But they wanted me to sign over my firstborn before they'd even let me have a test drive. The salesman comes over. He's all excited that I'm looking at it. He's like, oh, here, let me get you the keys for it. Okay, cool. Here, you want to sit in it? It's like, okay. So he let me sit in it, let me turn it on, which it was a bone stock, okay? So you couldn't even hear it running. And then before they would even let me do a test drive, they wanted to run my insurance. They wanted to run like a full credit check and all this other crazy stuff. And I was just like, no. Funny thing is, when I was getting ready to leave, I was like, yeah, I'm not really interested. He kept trying to talk it up, and they wanted like $45K for it, something ridiculous, right? Maybe it was like 40, I don't remember, but it was sky high. So I'm leaving the dealership. I get in my car, my STI. Wasn't quite as modified as it is today, but it was still loud, had the exhaust. I think I had a bigger turbo on it and everything. This is probably like after my first engine rebuild. So I was putting down like close to 400 to the wheels on a dyno jet. And get in the car, start it. Guy's ready to walk back in the store, and he's like, wait, is that your car? Hey, here's my business card. And then he hands me his business card. Oh, if you're ever interested in selling it, just give me a call. Dude, I'm not selling my car, number one. And number two, why didn't you tell me this before? Now you're suddenly interested because I have a cool car that you want to resell because you know you could jack the price up? No, I'm keeping my car, and I never contacted him, obviously. So that was the only time I was ever probably even sitting in an Evo. Never drove one because they wouldn't let me. They wanted to run my insurance and my credit and all this other stuff and sign this, sign that. For an Evo, are you kidding me, dude? No. Did you see what I drove here? No. So, yeah, Evos are cool though. What radiator and headers do you run? I have some rubbing issues with mine. That really sucks. I did have rubbing issues with my radiator, which was a Mishimoto X-Line. I don't recommend it. Not throwing shade at Mishimoto, just I had issues with that radiator from day one with fitment. It is extra wide to give you extra cooling capacity. But what's funny is my new radiator, which is a Koyorad, that actually cools much more efficiently. Quickly, it does it more quickly and more efficiently than my Mishimoto Rad, which actually had more coolant running through it. So I don't recommend that. In fact, my video that I did several years ago at this point, 10 things I hate about my car, my personal car, not Subarus in general, just my personal car. One of the issues was the hoses rubbing, and a lot of that was caused because of the Mishimoto X-Line radiator. So I do not recommend that radiator. But currently I run a Koyorad standard, standard thickness, whatever, all aluminum radiator. Love it. It's much better than OEM, significantly better than the Mishi was, and no fitment issues, no rubbing issues or anything like that. My headers are from Tomei. They are the Tomei unequal length. At least when I bought them, they were $700 for the headers and up pipe. I think you could still get them for that price. Maybe something's changed. There are other great brands out there, but that's just personally what I run. The only fitment issue that I had with those is the subframe, which I think is true for most aftermarket headers, if not all. You have to either cut away or bend part of the front subframe so that you have clearance. So that was taken care of when it was installed, and other than that, I have no issues with fitting or rubbing. So yeah, like I said, my Mishimoto Rad, I had rubbing issues. Other than that, I haven't had any issues at all. So that's what I run. Next question. Would you consider hosting a car meet sometime in the future? Yes. Yes. I kind of hesitate because I don't want to just say, yeah, I'll do that. Like, no, there are some stipulations, some criteria that I want to be met. I want to do it in a specific way. I'm not a fan of like the underground type meets or the late night meets. When I was in South Carolina, they had a thing called the Rice Bowl. If any of you are in Charleston, you probably know, you've probably been there. And it was it was a crap show. It was a crap show. There were a lot of cool guys there, a lot of cool cars, but then there were always the idiots who would show up late at night with nothing better to do, and they would just cause problems, do burnouts, try and do donuts and stupid crap. We'd obviously get attention from the cops, and it would get shut down. I remember the one day there was a guy there with a Corvette, so it's not always import guys. Guy shows up in a Corvette, thinks he's Joe Cool, pops a beer. He actually has a beer, smacks it on the, like, one of the concrete bases for a light post to smack the, to try and take the cap off to be super cool. Broke the bottle, and then he's just sitting there, like, drinking a beer in public next to his car. You are a moron. So I don't want any of that at a car meet. In fact, if I was going to have a car meet, I think it would probably be kind of hosted, quote unquote, by our ice cream shop once that happens. So if you're familiar with the Robinson area in Pittsburgh, we're going into Robinson Town Center. That plaza actually already has a car meet once a year, and of all cars, muscle cars, new cars, old cars, during the day, not at night, obviously. So they already have that, but I would love to have our own car meet in addition to that, and I would like it to be diverse. I love imports, I love newer cars. I would also love to see some older cars, some good American muscle, some classics from the 50s, 60s even, some Volkswagen Bugs, buses, whatever. Kind of like the vintage Grand Prix is. If you ever go to the Grand Prix, or if you've seen any of my videos of the Grand Prix, they have a ton of different cars. New, old, exotics, everything. So I kind of want it to be that. It's not going to be like some nightclub with, like, you know, your Volkswagen. I think of like the Volkswagen cars that are stanced and have LEDs and crap on them. Not hating, sorry. But yeah, it would be just everything. So I would like to have a car meet. It would probably be hosted like by our ice cream shop. It would be kind of like an event. Like, you would have to get registered. We would have to approve what cars are there. I've also been to the Pittsburgh car scene meets. Nothing against PCS, but I'm really not a fan of the meet. There's a lot of people who are just out of control, rambunctious, flooring it down the street to, I don't know, show off their exhaust or whatever. Back and forth. Like this past summer, there was a guy going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, just because he thought he was cool. I don't know. That stuff is like really annoying, so I'm not having any of that. Cut that crap out. But yeah, I would love to have a car meet. If any of that happens, I might post about it. I might not. I know one of the issues in the past with car meets is that they just get so big, especially like the waterfront meet. It gets so big and there's so much going on that it gets shut down. So I'd rather have a small meet that is nice, peaceful, respectful. You know, if you see the older guys have car meets all the time, car shows, and everybody's just chill. They'll get their little camping chair, they'll camp out, you know, have some hot dogs or whatever. And it's just chill. It's not any of the drama of the younger scene that you see a lot of times. So it would probably be something like that. So I would, maybe, we'll see. I may or may not announce it, but yeah. And the last three questions are very similar. What's next after the STI, and what other vehicle would you like to own besides the STI? So I've said this in previous videos, but first of all, I'm not looking to sell my STI. If anybody is new to the channel and they don't know that, I'm keeping my STI. There's no reason for me to sell it, honestly. It's holding its value, and ultimately it's going to go up in value. I love the car. I love the way it is. It's paid off. I did just put a new engine in it, but honestly, it's shorter for me to list the things that I haven't changed or upgraded or replaced or modified on the car than to list the original parts. So at this point, it really makes 0 sense for me to sell it. I mean, I could sell it for a decent price. I could probably get like $20K for it. Before people freak out, that's what people are paying, because I've said that in the past, and I've had people in the comments, oh, you're an idiot, nobody would pay $20K, that's not worth $20K. Hey, it's dictated by the market. So there are people who would pay $20,000 for a car like mine. You could do a quick Google search for that, but I don't really want to sell mine. I love my car. I want to get a car in addition to my STI, and hopefully sooner rather than later. I don't have the budget for that right now, but my car has 180,000 miles on it, and it's starting to show. And an issue with my car being a daily driver is anytime I have a problem with it, it's not something that I could just mess with on my own. It's something that I usually have to either try and do myself or take to the shop, but I don't have a whole lot of downtime with it. If it was not my primary car, then it's like, oh, my car's making a new noise, or oh, that broke. Okay, I could let it sit here. I could deal with it in a couple days or a couple weeks or whatever, right? I don't have that option right now. I don't have that luxury. So I would like to get another car. If I did, or when I do, what will I get? That is a great question. I would love to have a truck. We might get a truck through our business. So I just like the utility of a truck. I'm not like a big truck guy. I do love the utility of it. I do end up working on a lot of things and fixing a lot of things. So there's a lot of times, that I need to haul around some lumber or drywall, something like that. And I would love to have a truck for that. But I don't know if I'd get a truck. Maybe someday. Other than that, probably a car. I do think Jeeps are cool. I wouldn't mind having a Jeep, but a Jeep would probably be like my fourth vehicle. Right now, since I have my STI and that's my fun car, that's my fast car, that's what I've modified, I just want something that's simple and not modified. I probably wouldn't even get a WRX because I just don't care to. I just want something that's reliable and decent and will get me from point A to point B. I don't really see the point of me buying another STI or WRX and paying the money for that when I already have my STI. If it's snowing and I need all-wheel drive, I have my STI for that. If I want to drive fast, I have my STI for that. So whatever car I get would just be a simple daily. Doesn't have to be fast, doesn't have to be expensive. I don't know, maybe like a Camry or a Corolla or something. I know that sounds boring, but I have my STI. I just want something that's like cost effective, will run well, is low maintenance, and is cost effective, cheap on maintenance and on insurance, and also just in general. I don't want to buy a car that costs like $30,000. I would love to get a Mustang GT. I'm not going to lie. That would be really cool. But for me, it really wouldn't make sense right now with my budget, which is like zero. Wouldn't make sense to get that car because I don't need that and I don't have the money for that. But yeah, probably just something simple that's reliable and will get me from point A to point B. That is where I am in my life right now. So that is the Q&A. A lot of great questions. I know some of them are more in-depth, but I want to answer them in-depth because anybody could just blow through a Q&A and be like, yeah, I'd get an STI. Oh, yeah, I'd get a GT. I'd get da-da-da, whatever. But, if I don't really explain it, then kind of what's the point of the video, right? So, with that being said, that's these questions answered. I hope I answered your question. If you have other questions, you can drop them in the comments down below. But with as busy as I am, I can't guarantee that I will answer them or do another video. At the very least, I will try to answer them through text, and post a comment reply to you. If possible, if I have the time, I will make a video, but more than likely, I won't have the time for that. So, with that being said, with everything that's going on with this video, if you stayed this long, first of all, thank you. I appreciate you. And you're going to hear this before anybody else does. I'm still going to try and keep up with this channel the best that I can. But with everything else that's going on right now, I'm just in a very busy season of my life. And especially once we move our ice cream shop and we do reopen, that's going to be super crazy. I don't know what's going to be going on with this whole pandemic or the restrictions and all that. But my hands are going to be full regardless of what's going on. So I'm not forgetting about this channel. I'm not giving up on this channel. I'm not closing this channel. But it's just really hard for me to keep up with this channel with everything else that's going on. And as I've said numerous times in the past, this channel is a hobby of mine. It's something that I do on the side. It's not a career. I'm not looking to make it a career. So I make videos when I can, and I respond to you guys when I can. So with that being said, first of all, I want to thank you for watching this video, number one. Number two, for subscribing if you have. If you haven't, that's cool. I'd appreciate it, but either way, cool. If you like this video, give me a like. But I want to thank all of you guys, new and old. YouTube actually introduced a new feature where I could see kind of when people subscribe to my channel. And so whenever you comment, it will say like so-and-so has been subscribed for 3 years or whatever. So some of you guys are OGs. Some of you guys have been here since like day one. Some of you are newer, and that's cool. I welcome everybody. But thank you for getting me to 10K. I never expected to hit 10K, and even now I don't really feel like a 10K channel. But I do appreciate it. It's really awesome, and it really does help me financially, especially in this crazy time where, you know, I'm not working and I can't work. So I want to thank you guys for that. You really helped me out. And I just want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I hope you enjoy these videos. If you have any suggestions for other videos for me to do, drop it in the comments below. I still have those rap videos that I'm working on, but the problem is there's so much footage that I really don't have the storage space to handle that right now. But I will put those out as I can. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.